Welcome to the deep dive. Great to have you with us here on PodX Studio. Today, we're jumping into a really fascinating part of history, the foundations of modern India. We're going back to the early 18th century. It's a time, well, a time of huge change after this long period dominated by a really powerful empire. Our plan is to sort of unpack how this huge empire started to fray at the edges, maybe find some surprising bits along the way, and, give you that solid grounding.
It really is a pivotal moment. And what's so interesting, I think, is seeing how the very things that made the empire strong also kind of sowed the seeds for its eventual problems. We'll trace that whole arc, from the peak right down to the fragmentation.
Okay, let's do that. So the story really kicks off, well, much earlier with the Mughals, right? Babur, 1526. That victory at Panipat, which, many people have heard of, that really got the ball rolling for this massive empire.
Exactly. And from that start, it grows and grows, reaching what many call a golden age under emperors like Akbar. His reign, 1556 to 1605, he came after Humayun, his father, and really solidified things after that Second Battle of Panipat.
Akbar sounds like a real organizer. I'm quite interested in this Menzabdari system he brought in. It sounds like this clever ranking system, these mansabs. They went from pretty small to like huge ranks, but it wasn't just military rank, was it? It feels like it cleverly connected the army directly to land and, well, money.
That's it precisely. Think of it as a combined system, military and admin together. A Mansabdar's rank had two parts, Sat, that's like personal status, and Sawar, which dictated the number of cavalry they needed to maintain. And the crucial part, they were given territories, joggers, that generated revenue. These joggers funded everything, the troops, their own status. It basically made the empire a kind of war state, constantly needing to manage these resources and, well, keep the officers invested.
Right, invested. And speaking of investment and, well, grandeur, we definitely have to talk about Shah Jahan. 1628 to 1658. That's the era of just incredible building the Taj Mahal, obviously, but also the huge Red Fort complex in Delhi, Moti Masjid, Shish Mahal.
Oh, absolutely. Stunning examples of Mughal art and power. But here's the twist, isn't it? While they screamed wealth and stability, these massive building projects actually put a huge dent in Mughal treasury. It's almost like the display itself started to hint at maybe an underlying financial pressure building up.
And that pressure, it seems, just got worse under Aurangzeb, didn't it? His reign was long, 1658 to 1707. It's kind of ironic his time is seen as the empire reaching its largest size, like covering almost the whole subcontinent. But at the same time, sources often mark this as the real turning point towards decline.
That's a really key point. Yeah, despite the huge territory, the financial situation got, well, pretty dire. You had Shah Jahan spending before him, and then Aurangzeb fought these constant, really expensive wars, especially those campaigns down in the Deccan. They just dragged on and on, draining the exchequer. It wasn't just money either. It was manpower, resources, this relentless focus on expansion that maybe the empire couldn't quite sustain anymore.
And it wasn't only the wars, was it? You also hear about his more rigid religious policies and this growing Jagirdari crisis. So if these joggers were so vital, what exactly was this crisis? How did that make things unstable?
All right, good question. The Jagirdari system, like we said, was meant to be efficient. But as the empire grew, so did the number of Mansabdars needing rewards. Pretty soon, there just weren't enough productive jaggers, enough land grants to give out. So nobles started struggling to pay their troops. That led to, cutting corners, loyalty issues, a real scramble for land and resources. You mix that administrative and economic mess with Aurangzeb's religious policies, which definitely alienated some groups.
Well, it created a sort of perfect storm, really. Internal dissent, financial weakness. His death in 1707, it really felt like a watershed moment, the start of a much faster decline for what had been such a powerhouse.
So, okay, how does an empire like that, so powerful, actually begin to fall apart? It sounds less like one big event and more like lots of things going wrong at once. Let's dig into those reasons. Maybe start with the internal problems. Weak leaders, infighting. Exactly. That's a huge part of it. The Mughals, they didn't really have a fixed rule for who took over next. So when an emperor died, often the nobles would split into factions and literally fight it out for the throne. These wars of succession, they hammered away at the central government's power each time. And the emperors who came later, the weak successors, they often just became pawns in the nobles' games. They couldn't control things, couldn't stop revolts. It created, well, a power vacuum.
And it sounds like the nobles rushed right into that vacuum, this factionalism.
Yeah.
You mentioned different groups, Irani, Turani, Hindustani, Afghani, Rajput parties. It wasn't just politics, was it? Sounds like deep divisions based on religion, where they came from, tribal loyalties. That must have made the infighting much worse.
Oh, absolutely spot on. It wasn't just strategy, it was personal, it was economic. Which brings us neatly to the next big factor, the failure of the Mughal economy. Shah Jahan's building, Aurangzeb's wars, massive drains. Plus, you had the emperor and the top nobles living these incredibly luxurious lives. That cost a fortune, too.
Mm.
And then, crucially, the amount of Khalisa land, that's land controlled directly by the emperor for revenue, started shrinking. That destabilized things even more. It all fed back into that Jurgadari crisis we talked about, not enough land grants to go around, forcing nobles to basically look out for themselves, carve out their own power.
Right. And then you mentioned the zamindars shifting allegiance. These were the local landowners, the hereditary ones involved in collecting taxes. So as the center got weaker, especially under Aurangzeb, they just got stronger locally and started, what, ignoring Delhi?
Pretty much. They saw the weakness and acted in their own interests. They became like little kings in their own areas. And all these internal problems, they just cracked the door wide open for, well, other pressures. Regional powers started rising up. Groups like the Jats, the Marathas, the Sikhs. They began challenging the Mughals directly, which meant more warfare. The Mughals constantly trying to put down fires, draining even more resources. It was relentless.
And while all this is happening inside, you get threats from the outside, too. These external invasions. People like Nadir Shah, Ahmad Shah Abdali, they just swept in and caused massive damage, took huge amounts of wealth.
Immense losses, yes.
Ah.
Plundered Delhi. It wasn't just the money, it was the blow to Mughal prestige. It showed everyone just how vulnerable the empire had become. And there's another, maybe less obvious point here, the lack of scientific progress.
Hmm.
While Europe was moving ahead with new military tech, new ways of organizing things, the Mughal armies started looking, well, outdated. Their administration became less efficient. That kind of stagnation really hurt their ability to compete militarily and economically.
Okay, so the empire is weakening from the inside, politically unstable, economically strained, militarily falling behind. What happens next? As this giant structure starts to crumble, who fills the gaps?
That's the next logical step, isn't it? All these issues led directly to the rise of independent states.
Hmm.
Places that used to be Mughal provinces like Bengal, Old, Hyderabad, they effectively broke away. Their governors saw the central government was weak, and they just started ruling autonomously.
Mm.
And if you look at the list of emperors after Aurangzeb, the later Mughals, Qadur Shah first, Jahandar Shah, Farrukhsiyar, Muhammad Shah, Ahmad Shah, Alamgir, Akbar, the second Bahadur Shah II, right up to 1857. The sheer number of them in a relatively short time tells you everything about the instability. Constant turnover, intrigue.
And so important to remember, this wasn't happening in isolation. At the exact same time, you've got European trading companies showing up. The Portuguese were there really early, 1498. Then the Dutch, the English, the French. So into this fragmented, weakened India step these ambitious European players looking for opportunities.
Indeed. It sets the stage perfectly. It's a complex story, isn't it? How even the mightiest structures can unravel when that internal glue dissolves and external pressures mount.
Absolutely. So reflecting on this whole journey, from the sheer power of the early Mughals through all these complex reasons for their decline, the empire fragmenting, it really makes you think. As this huge power weakened and new independent states popped up, what did it actually mean for India's future when these European companies arrived with their own ambitions? It's definitely something to ponder.
A really crucial question. It reshapes everything that comes after.
Well, we hope this deep dive has given you some food for thought on this really pivotal time. Stay tuned for more deep dives right here on PodX Studio. And hey, if you enjoyed this journey through history, do us a favor, hit that like button, make sure you're subscribed to PodX Studio, and maybe ring that notification bell icon too so you never miss our next exploration.